There you go. Start stream. That's the button I want. Professionals. Welcome to Beer Field, where we stop making show scripts and honestly don't remember what the hell we talked about last week. I am your host at Beerfield Hop with 2 P's, as always, joined by at Beerfield 30. 2 E's.
2 E's. I feel like we're the only show that can get away with never writing a show script because it fits in with what we put out.
It does, but
into
then there's
universe.
problems like, did we talk about this last week? Okay, maybe not. We'll talk about it again. Who knows?
We're like the stupid drunk friend that forgets what they told you until the next day when they tell you for the third time. Mm-hmm. Like my wife.
Love her. Drunk friend.
I hear a lot of the same stories. It's good times.
Yeah. I like to tell stories that I forget that I told when I was drunk. So if I told you this already, I apologize. I won $350 betting ponies yesterday during horse hooky.
You forgot that you won $350.
I didn't forget. I just didn't know if I told you or not.
Oh, no, you didn't. But, had you, I would have been acceptably happy for you twice. That's fun.
Total accident.
That's like me when I bet on soccer once and I made $1,000.
So I went in there, up there, right? And I said, all right, I want a trifecta box. Here's my 3 horses. $2, Yeah. $2 should have been like a $12 bet. She did something. She rang in a 4th horse and then did something else that made it a $48 bet.
Okay.
So, it's all cash. I'm like, checking. I'm like, well, I got it. Here you go. Let's just roll. Let's write it. Like, not hit anything else. Let's write it. It fucking hit.
That's
Picked
fun.
up all 4. Went up, handed her the ticket. $338.
That's like me when playing craps and I hit my hard way. For those of you who don't know what a hard way is, you predict the dice that you predict the numbers that the dice lands on, and I always set my dice to 44, so I always hop to 44. Mm-hmm. And that pays a 30-1. So I put a $5 bet on it. I hit it the first time. They asked me if I want to take my hard ways down. Hard ways again are getting the same numbers twice. And I said no. Or I said yes, but they ended up pressing my hot bet to $10. But I didn't tell them to. So when I hit the 44 for a second time in a row, they were like, "Oh man, you won more money." I'm like, "I told you to take that down," but she's like, "You want to not win $450 or $300?" I'm like, "Well, I do now."
Yeah. Yep. That's kind of about how that went. By the Horse Hooky Tuesday, by the way, if you can ever work Collinsville on a light day on a Tuesday, the horse track out here does $1.50 drafts, $1 hot dogs, free admission, $1 minimum bets.
Wow.
Called Horse Hooky Tuesday, every Tuesday afternoon in the summer, from like April to October.
That sounds like fun.
So that's what we did for work yesterday.
I mean, I'm going to have to just stop in to see if they want to put any distill on draft and then just never leave.
They do have draft taps.
That whole day.
They do have draft taps. All right. So this week we're going to do the other half of rookie recap. So last week we talked about rookies and their landing spots. This week we're talking about who survived. We're going to look at the veteran players that, maybe the team didn't add or the team didn't add enough to where there's still opportunity there. And, these are guys that either have struggled with injury, struggled to catch on, kind of new faces, new places, a bunch of Jags that are just in a spot that, could potentially catch lightning in a bottle. These are guys that you want to post-draft. Maybe somebody cut them. If you're rebuilding, you've got spots. Grab them off the waiver wire. Have them as some mini throw-in pieces in trades just to offset value a little bit. Not guys we're necessarily advocating for go out and get them, but Could either be a depth piece to help your team if you're a contender, or a flip candidate for some mid-round draft capital middle of the season. So that's what we got for you today. As always, before that, we are presented by the FF Faceoff. So fffaceoff.com for articles when we decide to write, all of our content, all the awesome stuff that Aaron and Ryan and the gang are doing. We had Ryan on last week, so hopefully y'all enjoyed that. Beerfield Podcast on YouTube to follow along there. And Beerfield on Twitter. What you need to know. All right. What are we drinking?
What's fueling Beerfield?
What are you drinking?
And today, no surprise. Just kidding. I'm drinking War Pigs Brewing. This is a collaboration of two breweries to form a new brewery. This is Three Floyds and McKellar. To do a pretty crazy over the top. Three Floyds obviously very well known in the States, and then I want to say McKellar. That might be the States. I cannot remember where McKellar is from, but obviously two highly respected breweries. Three Floyds, you know pretty well. They're about 3.5, 4 hours from us, or at least from me. So today I am drinking their High Celebrant. This is a Doppelbach Lager. This is I'll just say this is fucking delicious.
Doppelbach.
Oh yeah, they're I'll talk about the style. We've talked about the style on there, and I'll give my thoughts on this. But old school Dan beer review. It's pretty fucking good.
So we're both rocking classic styles then. Nothing frou-frou today. I've got from Triptych Brewing Company out of Savoy, Illinois. Been a while since I've had them. Azaria, the German-inspired decoction mash. I'll get into what that means in a minute. Golden Lager with Azaria 1924 malt. German Pearl and Sapphire hops, part of their Heirloom Lager series. So Heirloom Lager series, heirloom grains. So classic grains, German noble hops, which is what Pearl and Sapphire are. They're native German hops in this lager beer. And then what a decoction mash is basically a step mash. And what that is designed to do is bring out the malt character more, essentially. I don't do decoction mashes. I cheat and use melanoidin because it does the same thing. It enhances malt flavor. But decoction mash is another way that you can go about it if you have the equipment and the temp control to do it. It's a traditional way of enhancing malt characteristics in your beer. So there you go. All right, let's get
Nerd stuff.
All right, let's get into some of the news. Starting off, the thing I'm not sure if we did or didn't talk about, a couple trades during the draft, which I could have swore we got to.
I don't remember talking about it. Like all I remember is jumping straight into the draft recap.
But I thought I thought we covered it during the draft recap. Anyway, just in case you've been under a rock,
You can just give quick thoughts. Then.
Yep, A.J. Brown and Marquis Brown both traded. A.J. Brown makes his way from the Titans to the Eagles. And Marquis Brown makes his way from the Ravens out to the Cardinals. So A.J. Brown to the Eagles, first and foremost. Obviously, big yak guy. Good compliment to what they've got with Devonta Smith. I don't know if it's going to be higher volume, but it shouldn't be any lower volume than what Tennessee was doing through the air. You should immediately be the alpha there. So, worst case scenario is it's net neutral for me on A.J. Brown.
I don't think it's better. Like, I mean, he had a perfectly catered offense. I mean, A.J. Brown's just so good. He goes from one low volume offense to the next. I don't think anyone should be surprised. Tannehill's a better thrower of the football than Hurts is, at least at this point in their careers. So I do expect some of the efficiency to come down just a tad bit. Higher competition for targets as well. It's not a massive negative though. He's still a wide receiver one. You still take talent over situation at this point. And we know how good A.J. Brown is. We know how good he is with the limited volume. It's just I've seen some people I've seen people love this move, and I'm like, it's not this world beater, guys.
No,
It's not.
It's not.
It's a good football move. It's a great football move, and it sets up the Eagles nicely for for years to come if Hurts doesn't work out.
Yeah, it's not a huge swing, and for Devonta Smith, what that does is it kind of caps it. So I mean, you really for AJ Brown, you're talking. Maybe net neutral, maybe a slight downtick in efficiency. For Devonta Smith, you're talking capped upside now. So, but definitely a better football move than it is a fantasy move. The flip side of this, though, Marquis Brown going to the Cardinals is something that I actually like a whole hell of a lot. Hopkins is going to miss the first 6 games off of a PED suspension, which I don't believe we talked about either. So Hopkins got suspended for PED usage. So, and
he's trying to claim it off like he didn't know what's going on.
Like everyone does. So he's going to miss the first 6 games. They re-signed A.J. Green, who admittedly had chemistry issues. You bring in Marquise Brown. Hollywood's back with Kyler. They played together in college. So you already have that built-in chemistry, and he immediately is going to see an increased target share over what he saw in Baltimore, and is immediately going to be, used at varying levels of the field. So,
target share was nuts last year.
Not target volume. If I said target share, that was.
All right. So here, he had 145 targets last year. That's 9th best in the NFL. On a 26.7% target share. Higher quality of target because he was fucking good with Lamar before Lamar got hurt.
They stopped using him just as a deep threat specialist too. They were better in the first part of the year, yes.
Well, he got once. I think it was once Huntley also got hurt, and he had that one game with their third stringer, and he had his ADOT was 2. I agree that Brown. I'm glad that Brown's gone. I mean, I'm not glad as a Ravens fan he's gone, but I'm happy for his fantasy value because I do expect what we saw from the early part of his last season with Jackson to be mirrored with the Cardinals, except they run more plays and they're more up tempo.
You are right. He did have quite a high target volume. I want to look at something else here though, because I think you're also right. I think you're also right in the fact that he can lose some targets and gain some efficiency and still end up about where he was. I mean, he gets Christian Kirk targets plus because of the Hopkins suspension. So even if
much of that it's hard for me to know how much Hopkins is gone is going to. I mean, they play completely different roles.
Well, they do, but I think it's a matter of you still have to throw the football, right? Even if they're
I know.
You still have to throw the football. When Hopkins is on the field, he demands targets. I mean, he's going to command targets when he's there. When he's not there, then you got to figure there's 8 to 10 targets a game on the table to go elsewhere. So what I'm saying is Christian Kirk had 103 targets last year. If you can get Hollywood in that 120 target range at a little bit better efficiency than what he had last year, on a better offense, I don't want to say better offense, better passing offense. Get him up in that, 13-ish yards per reception range instead of down at 11. You're pretty much going to end up net even, if not a little better than what you had last season. I think the opportunity is a lot higher. I think the floor is probably about the same.
I'm actually very interested to see how they deploy him when Hopkins is back. He was 15th in route to run last year, and that's playing with 3 quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. And this is including losing his MVP quarterback halfway through the year. I think he's going to be better with Hopkins on the field because of how well they complement each other. I think the issue is that the Cardinals' offense looked terrible after Hopkins was gone for most of the year. I know Kyler was also banged up, but Murray sat for a few games to get better. I'm more concerned of the scoring type of offense because AJ Green's supposed to fit that Hopkins void, and he was pretty bad at it last year, to be honest. But Brown's an obvious upgrade over Kurt.
And I think that's what it comes down to, is that Brown's an upgrade over Kirk. So the wheels came off when Hopkins wasn't there, but Brown was the one in Baltimore. We like Rashad Bateman. He was not the one there last year.
No, not even close.
It was Brown. So Brown, being a smaller guy, can stretch the field, though, can work as a one, can get behind defenses, and you still have A.J. Green there to help. to draw some coverage, and they re-signed Zach Ertz, which is also going to help that cause. He's still a capable tight end. So
I'm a big fan of this move, and I'm really pumped to see this Cardinals offense when Hopkins returns.
This is the better move for fantasy. I think the A.J. Brown train was the better NFL move.
Yeah.
This is the better fantasy move.
I agree.
All right, cool. Keeping it moving on to other things. Just because I have to, the Bears signed quarterback Nathan Peterman to a 1-year deal. I am stoked about that. Moving on. Nelson Aguilar doesn't know who the Patriots offensive coordinator is going to be, so they're off to a good start.
Oh my God! I'm here for a Patriots tank. I don't want to see them back in the playoffs. I'm good.
Josh Lambo suing Jacksonville for creating a hostile work environment. This is the kicker that got kicked.
Good, because fuck Urban Meyer.
Fuck Urban Meyer, agreed. Ravens withdrew the exclusive rights tender on running back Tyson Williams, making him a free agent. Remember him from last season when he got? I don't
even think Baltimore remembers him after that one game he played.
And then they signed Mike Davis, so that tells you how they valued them. Davis was cut by the Falcons too, is the other takeaway from that. So
I can't wait for him to get cut in about July, August. So I'm good.
Biggest takeaway from that whole news item is Tyler Algier.
Well, there's one more. Sony Michel going to Miami.
We'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I was gonna throw Michelle out there, but we'll actually break it down here in a minute because spoiler alert: Dolphins running backs are the first list of people I have on the survivor list. Tom Brady inked a deal to be Fox's lead analyst when he retires from the NFL, whenever that may be. Highest paid analyst in sports.
365 mil.
Yeah,
for 10 years, right? This fucking Jesus Christ. He better be fucking he does great for social media. He better be a fucking good he better be fucking good because that's insane, dude.
I'm expecting Pat McAfee meets Tony Romo, and I will accept nothing less for that amount of money.
And I hate how much I enjoy Tom Brady, but I'm gonna love him if he fucking kill. I want him and Romo together, even though they can't be. But
yeah,
that'd be so much fun.
And the biggest news of the week: Deebo Samuel refollowed the 49ers on Instagram.
Oh God! Now we all can rejoice.
We can all just relax.
Fuck! I can't. Oh, so glad that's over.
I'm sure there's more, but that's all the further I can get before the show started. Let's talk some Survivor, shall we?
Let's do it.
Hold on, I'm gonna hit the tribute drop again, just because.
Draft recap.
All right, wrapping up our NFL draft coverage, we are going to be looking at the position groups that survived. So what I did is I went through every team's depth chart, and basically what we're looking at here is areas where there's a lot of opportunity. Basically, they didn't add anybody. There were teams where we suspected that they could have added maybe a clear starter, or maybe some additional depth, and it didn't necessarily happen. Maybe they traded their lead receiver away. So without further ado, as I teased, the first group on this list, Dolphins running backs. So the Dolphins were a team I think we had all targeted as potentially drafting a back if McDaniel wanted somebody in there of his own accord, but we also kind of know from the 49ers that the Dolphins are going to use a multi-headed attack. They didn't draft anybody. They signed Sony Michel, and then they're going to roll with, listen to this list of people: Chase Edmonds, Sony Michel, Raheem Mostert, Myles Gaskin, Salvon Ahmed.
Oh man, I can't wait to try to figure out who the top back's going to be, even though we all know it's going to be Chase Edmonds and he's going to be a value now.
I think Edmonds and Michel are the two that you want to target. I expect more than one back to come out of this with value for them, just because that's how these backfields go. I think it's Edmonds and Michel. Mostert's too injury prone. Gaskin fell off the face of the earth. I think Gaskin's going to be the guy that gets like a random start in week 12 and you're spot plugging him in. But I think Edmonds and Michel are what you want here. And I don't see them adding anybody else either to that backfield. I mean, that's a good enough running back room from the people that are in there for what this offense is going to be and expected to be.
I fully expect, because it's 5 running backs, right? I fully expect
somebody's going to get cut.
Someone's going to get cut. Probably be Ahmed, maybe Gaskin. With Mostert knowing the 49ers running scheme, with Evans being handpicked and Michelle being a late ad. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Michelle is cut either, just because we've seen that a lot. That we get hyped about these veteran guys that move on through teams after the draft, and they just, just never happens.
Was good in his own scheme with the Rams at the end of last year. So
yeah, I'm not saying I think he will. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if he is.
Yeah. So right now it's Michelle and Edmonds, I think, are the two that I would like to go after. When I say go after, I'm not saying run out and trade specifically for these guys. Again, these are guys that, in the case of Edmonds or Michelle, or especially Michelle, you might be able to nab on the cheap as a throw into a deal if you needed somebody else to balance it, et cetera, et cetera. I do think Michelle is probably worth that at this stage in the offseason.
Yeah,
especially as
no issue with
drafts. That. Patriots wide receivers. So the Patriots got through only adding Tyquan Thornton. Tyquan Thornton was my lowest rated wide receiver, other than David Bell, out of any one's film that I watched. It's a Patriots pick that isn't gonna jump to anything. So I mean, they're looking to roll again with Myers, Bourne, Aguilar, and then the addition of Devonta Parker. So to me, this is good news for Myers as a floor play. I think Parker's a lot of what does he have left. But, if I'm picking two from this group, it's probably going to be Myers and Parker, particularly Myers being the guy that I want to have rostered. But they didn't go out and get anybody that really shakes this up. So it's lower volume. It's not sexy. But if they had value last year, congratulations. They had value pre-draft. They survived it because Tyquan Thornton does not register as anything other than a guy for me. He's still a second round pick. He's going to be on the roster. He's going to have a chance to maybe potentially crack the starting lineup. I'm sorry, Kendrick Bourne shouldn't scare anybody. Devonta Parker, I can't remember what they gave up for him. Nelson Aguilar doesn't even know who the offensive coordinator is. I don't think anybody does. I don't think that's a Nelson Aguilar indictment. I think that's a Patriots indictment.
With all that being said, I only want one guy. And that's Jacoby Myers, and that's it. Because I don't know why anyone wants to attack this back, wants any part of this receiving core.
Remind me again what round N'Keal Harry went in?
He was pick 32, round 1.
Okay. I rest my case about not caring about Tyquan Thornton.
I'm just saying,
it's
N'Keal Harry started. I'm not saying he's going to be productive, but he's going to probably eventually start. That's all I'm at. I'm saying.
How long did N'Keal Harry start, right? Because
I think like 3 or 4 years before.
Belichick don't care. He doesn't give a
I don't know why I got fuck Tyquan Thornton. Wow, I don't even care anymore.
N'Keal Harry over this. Played 7 games his rookie season. He started 5 of them. N'Keal Harry has started 18 games over the course of his 3-year career.
Hey, all Tyquan Thornton has to do is it's actually want to actually be good at football.
N'Keal Harry has 500 receiving yards for his career. I don't care when Tyquan Thornton was picked. Not in New England.
I don't even know why we spoke way too many words about him.
Yeah. Giants running backs. So this is here mostly because...
Londo Robinson's the RB2.
Yeah, it's not because I expected them to take a starter, but I did expect that they could probably try to add some depth behind Barkley. Especially given the level of third-tier backs that were in this class, they kind of project as that NFL backup that could be a very serviceable piece in Barkley's injury history, and they didn't do it. They're rolling with Matt Breida and Gary Brightwell, so behind Saquon Barkley. So what that does is, one, they're doubling down on Barkley and his injury history as a starter, which you should. The talent's still very much there. But 2, it's wide open behind him, and when you look at backs over the last couple of years that have a high potential to get injured, miss games, Barkley's right up there. And we're going to talk about another one here later.
Great call. He's still a value. Londo Robinson had 141 carries in college, had 88 in his freshman year. No, I'm not saying I'm not advocating. I'm seeing shades of Tavon Austin 2.0. You have an undersized, productive wide receiver. I would not like, and we just watched what Debo did. We know that this is a copycat league.
Well,
I'm not saying it's going to happen.
It's not Debo.
No, I'm not calling him Debo, but a team that can get maximum, potential out of their second round pick. We just saw what Atlanta did with Cordell Patterson last year.
Right, but
obviously he's not built like that. But
problem with Wandale is that you already have that on the roster. His name's Kadarius Toney.
If there's any, maybe like they're trying to move him after 1 year. So I mean, I'm not saying they will, but I mean, this ain't the regime that drafted him either. So I mean, I'm not saying maybe you will be. Maybe he's a head case and they don't want to deal with him.
Speaking of running backs, or speaking of wide receivers, I guess.
Yeah.
The Giants wide receivers also came out of this thing relatively unscathed. And that's a group that includes, are you sitting down?
Hold on. Yep.
Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, Richie James, Robert Foster, David Sills, Colin Johnson.
So many slot receivers. And then, Kenny Golladay
and Robert
Johnson.
Foster. And, yeah.
I thought Brian Dabble was supposed to be good at this. Oh, we want more. We want more slot and gadget players. I remember that guy out in San Francisco killed us probably one time.
Again, not advocating for it because it's the Giants. Kadarius Toney, I talked about him a couple months ago. He was the most, as far as efficiency goes, the most efficient receiver of the bunch. Kenny Golladay certainly could have a resurgence under Dabble. Shepard's got to stay healthy. The thing with Golladay, Shepard, and Toney is that actually could be a somewhat passable group. Not elite by any means, but serviceable. But the injury history is so deep there that, if I'm looking at anybody, it's Toney. He's still young. He was hurt. He was mildly productive. If I'm looking at anybody to get on a throw-in deal, it's Kadarius.
He's got to be cheap. I mean, I'm not running out and bringing anybody in, but I mean, someone's got to catch passes. Yep. He's still Daniel Jones, but he's good enough. At times it's not. We're not advocating. We're just simply highlighting what we see.
The Eagles are another team that I thought could bring in some depth and didn't do it. So they're going to roll into the season with Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell, and Boston Scott.
But Boston Scott is still there, huh?
He is still there,
I thought he got cut. They brought in some undrafted guys. I remember somebody was all pumping the table about who Philly brought in, but they don't like to utilize their running backs the way that I think everyone thinks they should. So much of the same last year. Miles Sanders gets underutilized. Gainwell will vulture touchdowns. And Boston Scott will be very useful once Miles Sanders gets hurt.
And that makes Gainwell the guy that you're looking at as the throw-in piece here, as long as I'm listing people off. Special shout-out to the Eagles quarterbacks, too. Carson Strong, not a threat for anything. So Hurts and Minshew, yay, he survived another year.
Yay!
Bengals backup running backs. So Joe Mixon's another guy that falls under the category of when he's on the field, there's nobody that's a threat to him, except for apparently Samaje Perine in super critical situations.
Zach Taylor.
Yeah. But he's another guy that's also had some ankle issues and some soft tissue issues that could miss a couple games. And again, the Bengals were in a position to add depth, and they didn't do it. So they are rolling with Samaje Perine, who's used in a lot of third down roles, and Chris Evans. So I don't know what you do with that information, but there you go. They survived. That means Perine is he's the cuff, right? So he should probably be rostered because, he's one injury away, basically. And if it's a season ender, then for once in his life, he'll have value.
What this really means is just be extremely confident in selecting Joe Mixon. There's zero threat to He should be a top 5 back for fantasy. He should be drafted as such. And the Bengals apparently have no issues with him and his workload by showcasing not wanting to bring anybody in to compete for a backup spot with Samaje Perine and Chris Evans.
Absolutely. Bears skill positions. I mean, yeah, it's bad. They brought in Velus Jones, 25-year-old rookie. Darnell Mooney, I think because of that, is relatively safe. And then you've got St. Brown and Pringle. But the bigger takeaway here to me is that they also did nothing. They released Tariq Cohen with an injury designation. So they didn't do anything in the running back room. So Khalil Herbert maintains his cuff status for David Montgomery. And we all remember what Khalil Herbert did when he had to sub in.
Low-key, he is one of the biggest winners of this. He has to survive next year, too. But David Montgomery is a free agent after the season. I don't see a reason for them to bring him back. His coaching staff didn't draft him. It shouldn't fit the rebuild profile because they're still at least 3 years behind. So Khalil Herbert looking like a committee back potentially next year if they decide to go that route, or he can definitely be. I think he's just as good. I think this offense functions the same.
I think it does too. And the other note there is that without Tariq Cohen, Montgomery and Herbert are not necessarily known for their receiving chops, and they have Darrington Evans there, who's just 23 years old. Darrington Evans is younger than the wide receiver they just drafted.
Montgomery at least was he was a productive all-purpose back with Iowa State. So if they decide to be anti-Josh Jacobs with him, again, he's also a value. It's oddly enough, last year we taunted the table to trade these guys. They've reached a point where we're comfortable with what their value is. Speaking of, Josh Jacobs and David Montgomery, and a little bit of Miles Sanders said now these guys are going to be valued pieces, especially in redraft. Montgomery's going to be forgotten. I don't want to be forgotten about, but he's going to be overlooked because of how bad the Bears' offense is. And who else is catching the football there? They have a bunch of wide receiver. They have one wide receiver, 2, and a bunch of 4s and 5s. I don't think they have any 3s on this roster. It's a bunch of 4s and 5s outside of, Mooney, who's the lone 2.
Yep. Speaking of 4s and 5s outside of a lone 2, Jacksonville. Their wide receiver room did not do anything to get better. They did not do anything to add any weapons for Trevor Lawrence. So you were going to roll in with Marvin Jones, Zay Jones, and Christian Kirk. Now, it is an upgrade over last year. But they did pay the shit out of Christian Kirk, who I think is immediately your top guy. But I think that you almost have to look at Zay Jones after, being serviceable with the Raiders last season and landing on a team that you figure is going to play from behind a good amount. Yes, because they didn't do this, I think it's also really good for Travis Etienne, but Zay Jones is one of those reclamation guys you can probably take a flyer on if you have the roster spots here, that should be near free out on a waiver wire post-draft that I think you can add and potentially get some week-to-week value out of is a depth piece or a plug-in start because Jacksonville's going to throw the ball a bunch, because they're going to be playing from behind, and because they didn't add an alpha here.
Somebody's got to catch passes. Kurt's going to be the popular guy. Oddly enough, this doesn't kill potentially Chenault. They brought back Laquan Treadwell. Marvin Jones is probably the outside guy I would prefer. He's got a proven history with that track record, and I think he fits well with Lawrence's play style and with how he likes to operate. And I'd see him more as the true DJ Chark replacement, where Zay Jones just kind of fits what maybe Treadwell did last year late. So, like you said, they're going to be throwing the football a shit ton. Even with this bad division, they're still going to be throwing the ball a lot because this defense isn't quite there yet. And there's really isn't a true cohesion here. I don't know what the fuck Doug Peterson's doing and what this. I mean, it's Trent Baalke, so no one's shocked by it. But
yeah, well, and it's a multi-year rebuild too. So, what you hope is that they add enough year 3 to be competitive in the last 2 years of Lawrence's rookie deal. But
I just wish this would have been this is a great year to just add in. There's so many potential pieces that could have been added to this roster. That from the wide receiver spot that they didn't attack.
You got to at least get one, and they didn't.
It's just like you got to give Lawrence somebody alongside Kirk. Kurt's a good number 2.
You got to give him somebody that he can grow, even if it's another number 2. Give him somebody that he can grow with, and find your one later.
Yep.
Because I think Kirk's an even better, probably 3/slot guy, more so than anything.
Yeah.
Atlanta's wide receivers, by the way, they did add Drake London, but nobody else. So, it's a situation where with London, you're one injury away from the Odd and Tate show. Or struggles away from the Odd and Tate show. I mean, Demir Bird and Odd and Tate, right? They're the two guys that have had some week.
Zacchaeus, right?
Zacchaeus, yeah.
Slot guy, he's starting probably.
No, he probably is. Zacchaeus is. And Tate's probably starting right now, too. Well, no, Patterson. So, again...
I'll be interested to see how they... Yeah.
I think that if they're interested in putting the best offense on the field, you're deploying Algier with Mariota to be able to pick it up on the ground, and you're using Patterson as a receiver, kind of in a slot gadget type role with... or even outside as a field stretcher with... Drake London and then Zacchaeus in the slot. And, obviously Kyle Pitts. But
I think they're going to do a lot of wacky shit with this, with what they can get from Patterson, what we've known for Damian Williams to be, which is nothing.
Yeah.
It's this receiving core. Adding Drake London, it obviously makes it better. But
it's another team that's going to have to throw a geometric shitload too. So you might as well take a flyer on somebody here.
Yeah, Drake London, 100+ targets, lock it in.
Oh yeah, London's going to have 100+. Pitts is going to have 100+, and somebody out of this group is going to have 80.
It's going to be just a massive collection of 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
It's going to be Patterson. Patterson might get 100 targets this year.
He might,
man. He just might fuck around and get 100 targets in this offense.
He might. Panthers wide receivers, particularly Terrace Marshall. Panthers did not add a wide receiver. They extended DJ Moore, so that puts Terrace Marshall as one of their top 3.
Him and Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. More and I mean, it's just going to be more.
Locked in, so
yeah. They were Rashard Higgins. They brought in Rashard Higgins. Apparently,
did they?
They did.
Yeah. Well, the Bears signed Tajay Sharp too. We didn't talk about that, but
is Higgins better than Marshall? I mean, maybe. Marshall was so bad last year.
Right, but
Shi Smith replaced him.
You're one receiver, so yeah.
That's true.
But what it is who behind DJ Moore? Well, right now, it's Christian McCaffrey, but let's talk about that for a minute, too. McCaffrey, like Barkley, has been just completely offset by injuries the last couple of years. So you can't discount the guys that are behind him. Who's behind him? Well, they didn't draft anybody. They didn't add any depth that way. It's Chuba Hubbard and Devonta Freeman. And we saw what...
Please, McCaffrey, stay healthy.
Well, we saw what Foreman can do, though, when called upon. Granted, in an offense that was designed for his running style. But this is here basically to say, a lot like the Bears, where we talked about Herbert and Evans, Foreman and Hubbard are one injury away to a back who has not been healthy for 2 years, it being pieces that are either become very flippable or usable for one season.
I 1,000% agree. That's why I hope to God McCaffrey stay healthy, because I have fun dissecting this backfield.
It'd be Foreman
if that happens.
It'd be Foreman.
I would think so too. I'm betting on Foreman too. But Hubbard was productive last year when he was called upon.
New Orleans did not add anybody behind Alvin Kamara. So there's Mark Ingram and Tony Jones there.
Oof.
And what we know about New Orleans is that, yes, they had a Chris Olave. Yes, they should be getting Michael Thomas back. But unless there's a philosophical shift with an older school coach and Dennis Allen to throw the ball more, you're going to go 1-2. And what we know about Alvin Kamara is he does better when he's used the way that he can be successful and there's somebody else to handle the heavy running, I guess. Not the volume, but the grind it out between the tackles stuff.
It's Mark Henry. Mark Henry. God damn it.
Yes, it's sexual chocolate. They're putting Mark Henry behind the line. And
I do that
saying,
so much.
Go.
No, I hope so. Mark Ingram's, I mean, it's great for them. This offense is going to...
Mark Henry's like 55.
He is 55. He might still be better than what they got there.
No, Mark Ingram, they're going to try with it, but if Ingram struggles, he's in his 30s. Tony Jones is going to have a shot here as well. And the difference is that Tony Jones is probably on the waiver wire.
You got Kamara, who's not the biggest back in the world, he's taken a lot of touches. Mm-hmm. You know, at some point, a back his size, don't worry Sean Payton to get, creative with the play calling. You get creative with how he gets the ball in his hand. You get a bad offense. They're going to still throw him the football. So for as long as Kamara's healthy, he'll be fine. But
yeah,
it's going to be a lot of gross games.
There will be somebody else there.
There has to be.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Let me look up Tony Jones here real quick, actually.
Tony Jones.
So 2020, 5'11", 224.
Got the size.
Got the size for it. Averaged 2.6 yards per attempt last season.
16th percentile spark score.
All right.
98.4. Tony Jones, he don't give a fuck. He's just a big fucking body.
Chiefs running backs. Again, another situation where, given the struggles of Edwards-Helaire, you think, okay, maybe they can add somebody in that mid-tier. And nope, they added Ronald Jones in free agency. They still got Derek Gore and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So, really, Edwards-Helaire survives, and you're just looking for a sell window.
What about Isaiah Pacheco, Hopper?
Who?
What about Isaiah Pacheco? A 6th-round pick.
Darwin Thompson?
I can't believe Clyde's going to be a value this year.
He will be a value this year, and
you all over it.
It's the same thing that happened with Swift and Montgomery after, I think, in their second years last year.
Swift was a 3rd-round pick last year. I think Montgomery was like a 4th.
They were 3rd and 4th, and it was the same thing. They're former, we expect them to be bell cows. They struggled, and then they hit 3rd, 4th round and are disrespected. And Edwards-Helaire is going to be in that same middle rounds of your draft. And Ronald Jones is his biggest competition, and then Derek Gore, who flashed a little bit, but maybe they do get more out of Ronald Jones like they did Jerick McKinnon at the end of last year. But I honestly think Jones is probably worth the flyer for that reason. If Edwards-Helaire does struggle, but I think Clyde's going to be your value, and Rojo's somebody that. I don't know where the ADP is at on Rojo. I don't know if people are losing their shit because he's on the Chiefs or not, but, if that becomes a value.
Jones will probably be double-digit rounds. Clyde will be in the round 5 or 6 range. Good. It's going to be my guess. That's probably what he'll end up being.
Sure.
In late August.
All right, and then Rams running backs, Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson. Also didn't add anybody. Akers coming out the Achilles injury. Great recovery, not highly productive after coming back from that. Henderson struggled with his opportunities. So they didn't add anybody, though. And Michelle's gone.
Yeah, that's a pretty clear sign that McVay and his coaching staff is very comfortable with Henderson and Akers, which effectively means they're very comfortable with Akers. So, we'll have to see what we get from them, but
maybe they're just really comfortable with Jake Funk.
That are Was it Kyron Williams went there?
Yeah, they did pick Kyron Williams.
Very comfortable with Kyron Williams there.
Yeah.
Oh, Kyron Williams.
My, how he fell.
Bye.
Yeah. So, I mean, there you go. Kind of a quick run through, but there are guys that came out of this looking good. There are guys that survived. We're going to beer review, and then I'm going to add another segment to this because it's going to be a short show. I
got one more. We got one more, and I think you'll disagree with me.
Okay.
That's the Baltimore backfield. A lot of speculation that maybe Baltimore was going to add a late day 2 pick to the Dobbins and the Gus Edwards backfield. They get Tyler Beatty in the 6th round. We like him. More of a Justice Hill guy. Same size, same skill set. Far better player. Mike Davis, I think he's going to get cut. I don't think it really matters to me. Dobbins is a guy that we've talked about on here. Baltimore is a backfield that it looks they're pointing the direction of wanting to go where they were from a couple years ago. Lamar Jackson's rookies or not his MVP season, where it's run the football, control the clock. I don't think that's going to work out very well, but that's what they're pointing to. So Dobbins value, Gus Edwards will be a value. Beatty could be. 6th-round picks are tough. They could end up on the practice squad this year, but Ravens backfield also survived what many people there were some rumors being talked about them potentially adding a back late day 2.
Tyler Beatty killed that backfield.
Okay, yeah, just 199 pounds of himself murdered that backfield.
He did. That's what
completely
I'm going with.
Gone.
Tyler Beatty. No, you're right. It's kind of like Miami, where we expect it to be committee, and it's basically pick 2 guys out of that committee that you like, and try to get one or the other.
Yeah, I'm not. Beatty needs to be drafted in your rookie drafts. What we saw from Baltimore last year is that they are willing to utilize the running backs more.
Spoilers, he will be at 2.9.
At 2.9?
Mm-hmm. In our rookie draft.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think he lasts until 3.8, and I've got 2 second-round picks. So,
I mean, I have to look through my draft. I got 3 second-rounders. He won't be drafted then. I'm not that crazy. But
just telegraphing that.
I know.
I might move back.
I don't have a 3rd-round pick, so I'm not taking him from you.
We'll see. I might move back. All right, let's hit a beer review, and then we'll wrap up with something else to keep an eye on throughout the offseason.
Beer review.
All right, dude.
A beer's so good that I have to pour another one. So, again, this is War Pigs Brewing. This is the Three Ploys McKellar Collaboration Brewery. This is their high celebrant. This is their Doppelbach Lager. Obviously, very, very dark amber malt color to it. A lot of toasted notes, hints of toffee without the sweeter body to it. Hints of caramel with that. Obviously, those are all very popular notes that you're going to be pulling from the malts that are being used. I don't have any of the billing being put together, but I'm assuming with these German-inspired beers that you're going to get your German-inspired malts and potential hops that are being used. So, if you get a chance to find this variety pack or some of the 6-pack bottles that are floating around, I highly recommend. Worth the price of admission. This is very high quality. Obviously, you have to. Even if you don't know about the style or you may not be particular with the style, I would highly recommend A, getting into it, and B, picking this up to be one of your guinea pig beers to get you there.
And on that Doppelbach style, for those that don't know, a Doppelbach is a multi-German lager. Pale and dark variants, darker versions, richly developed deep malt flavors. So very strong maltiness. Malt is 100% the star of that show. There can be some hot bitterness, but malt is the star of the show with the Doppelbach. And they tend to sit between 7 and 10% ABV.
Yeah, very much of a malty sweet finish to it. You do get reminiscence of a hot back bite to it, but it's very subtle.
All right, I was drinking Azaria from Triptych. It is a German-inspired decoction mash golden lager. Again, decoction mash is designed to bring out malt, and it's a good beer. It's if you're thinking you're getting like a light beer out of this or something super clean, that is not necessarily what you're getting. This has a lot of flavor. The decoction mash brings out, again, the malt in this, which is very bready, crackery, almost like biscuit-like, which is exactly what you'd expect to get out of European malts. There are 0 notes of caramel to this. It is all just toasty, bready, flavorful, medium-bodied goodness. And then, from the hops, there's a very nice subtle bitterness to this, but it's also earthy, which is, again, just kind of classic and noble hops and some floral notes to it. So, going for a lager, if you're expecting... Lagers are not boring. Lagers do not have to be bland, neither do Pilsners. They can be very flavorful and very good beers that accentuate hops almost better than IPAs, especially classic hops, and bring out some of the lighter style malts, and this is exactly what this lager does. So, know what you're getting, right? You're not getting a American light lager with this. You're not getting your twice brewed hams or anything like that. You're getting a very flavorful classic European lager that showcases malt and hops, and Triptych did very good at this. Normally, I'm still going to ramble a little bit. Normally, Triptych's a hazy IPA brewer, right? That's kind of what they're known for. They do a lot of hazy IPAs. And we say a lot on this show that if you want to know the mark of how good a brewery is, get away from the IPAs, get away from the adjuncted shit, and go try a classic style. Yeah, Triptych proves every now and again that they can just do a good classic beer.
It's good.
It's very good. All right, I want to wrap up the show by looking at the free agents that are left and could really throw a wrench into some of what we just talked about. So who is available on the market? Roll through these just kind of quick, if they land anywhere with some opportunity in these places we just talked about, what your interest level is. Julio Jones.
I want to see him go. Like I do believe Green Bay is going to be in the market to bring a veteran in, whether it be Julio or Landry that's still left over, maybe Beckham when he is back and fully healthy. But it's gotta be a spot where I think he can be a starter right away.
And he's going to get volume.
His twilight year, it's not been kind to him with the injuries of last year. Maybe he gets one more Andre Johnson type of season, and then he just fades off to the sunset. But my interest, I'm also concerned that like if he goes to a place like Green Bay, he'll be vastly overvalued.
Yeah, he needs to go to a place where he can get volume, but he needs to go to a place where he can get a ring. I think if he lands in, he needs to land on a competitor. So, if the Chiefs decide they need more, right? And Julio may not sign right away. Julio may Odell this thing and sign midway through the season.
I think he should. I think for him, I think his best bet is to handpick his spot.
Yeah.
And I expect the same thing from Odell, too. I mean, him more because of the injury, but I expect him to do the same.
Yeah, I mean, somebody catches an injury and needs help. Somebody doesn't recover quite as well as you'd expect. There's a multitude of reasons that you get a late Julio Jones signing. So that'll be interesting to pay attention to. You mentioned Jarvis Landry. He is absolutely still available. Cleveland came out today and not expected to re-sign him. So Landry at 29 years old will be able to sign wherever. And I like him in Green Bay more than I like Jones because you can slide him into the slot above Cobb, and I think, Watkins and then Watson after he gets hurt, and Alan Lazard with Jarvis Landry in the middle gives them the, kind of their best 3 wide receiver set.
I 1000% agree. I think Jarvis's best spot is a team like Green Bay that is not only because of what he brings to the field, but it's the locker room. It's the countless times you hear about how much he's a locker room leader. I don't know how productive he's going to be. He may land with the team where he's effectively there to run his handful of routes per game and be that locker room guy who's probably also going to be chasing a ring. I think for him, his market's a lot smaller than a guy like Julio, because I think with Landry, it's just you get his role and that's it. Mm-hmm. But you might see he might take the first deal. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to a team like Detroit. Detroit's got an entirely young, young, in need of some veteran guideship to them, where I think he could be, he could fit very nicely, into that spot. I know that, with St. Brown there, it may not happen, but spots like that, the Bears may call him up. He may get desperate and just,
if he's looking
pick his first team.
Teams that are fringe wildcard teams, the 49ers would be an option.
Yeah.
Part of the way through.
Yeah.
They would absolutely be an option. Tennessee, if Derrick Henry comes back like they expect him to, could also be an option there.
Yep. That's a good call too.
Will Fuller, the often injured Will Fuller. I'm probably less interested in him wherever he lands, just because of the injury history, than I am a guy like Jones or Landry, who I think we both expect Jones or Landry have something left and can offer something. Fuller, I think, lands someplace on a depth prove-it deal, and he doesn't have the luxury of just being able to choose, like, I want to go to a contender. He may have to end up in a place, like a Jacksonville, like a Seattle, like a New Orleans even, on a cheap deal to have to try to make something out of something and rebuild his value.
It's not good when the NFL knows that you need pets to be able to play more than a few games. Fuller may sign 1-year prove-it deal, random team. He may retire. He may not get picked up. He's someone that I have no clue when he'll pick. He may try to wait it out. His is tough. He's probably a guy that's waiting for injuries to come more so than anything. Landry and Julio has made the money. They can kind of almost pick and choose. So I still think Landry has not as much of that option as Jones does, but Fuller is waiting for a team. Just one. The Eagles might be that team.
Body. Yeah, Eagles could be that team. Giants could be that team.
Yeah. No one like him on that team right now with a bunch of big betas and slot receivers.
Wow. T.Y. Hilton, and I think he's either back to the Colts or he's retiring. I don't see him playing anywhere else.
Yeah, I think I think with Pierce being drafted there, I think he's done out of there.
Cole Beasley, I'm pretty sure, is done. Emmanuel Sanders is, if he signs anywhere, will be just a body. Alan Hearns, same thing. Albert Wilson, same thing.
Alan Hearns?
Alan Hearns is a free agent. Yeah.
Jesus.
He'd been with Miami.
It's like 6 years ago. 6 years ago name.
Right.
Love it.
Deshaun Jackson,
good for him.
Danny Amendola, they're both probably done. Odell Beckham is the other top tier guy out here. We've seen a lot about him to Green Bay, a lot about him potentially going back to Los Angeles. He's another guy, he's younger than Julio. He's the same age as Landry, and I think is going to be able to command a little bit more of where he wants to go, where is he comfortable. But for Odell, the big thing is that Odell has fun playing football. A reunion with the Giants is not out of the question, given the entire regime turnover. I'd be surprised if he's not in Green Bay or Los Angeles, though, because he wants to win, and Odell's going to get to choose to go someplace where Odell thinks that Odell is going to thrive.
I think he goes back to the Rams. I think they find the way to bring the money back. I think he'll sign a deal that makes sense for both teams. Green Bay feels like the best and probably the right choice terms of opportunity. I think Odell in this case just wants to create a legacy. And for him being the top receiver for 2 to 4 years and him doing what he did with the Giants, he got his money in Cleveland. And towards the end of his career with not his time with the Giants, not his career, I think he stays with the Rams. I think the Rams made a very massive impression on him even before the Super Bowl ring.
I think so too.
But I think for him that's his home, and I think Green Bay is going to make their offer. But I think he sticks in with the Rams. I do.
I think Green Bay ends up with a Landry. All right, the rest of these guys. I'll read through them, then we can talk about anybody you want to talk about, whether it's, oh my God, they're still in the league, or so Marquis Goodwin, Adam Humphries, Mohamed Sanu, D.D. Westbrook, Tavon Austin, who's somehow just 32 years old, Chester Rogers, Chris Moore, Chad Beebe, Christian Blake, Marcus Kemp, John Ursua, Deontay Spencer, Cameron Batson, Jawan Jennings, Courtney Davis, T.J. Montgomery, Landon Lenore, and Jesper Horsted. Great. All right. That's it for wide receiver. Nobody else in that group to talk about, huh? None.
Do you really want to talk about a Chad Beebe or
D.D. Westbrook?
D.D. Westbrook?
No.
No.
All right. Let's go on to running backs then. Tariq Cohen is first off, if you get the chance, go read Tariq Cohen's letter to him former self, because it's a sad situation. He's a guy that I think that there's no way you can't root for him after reading that. I'm a Bears fan. I'm going to root for him anyway. But there's no way you can't root for Cohen. The Bears released him this offseason. It's taken him 2 years to come back from a torn ACL, MCL, and fractured something or another. But he, according to him, is healthy, can cut. The shiftiness is back. He's a guy that's just going to be looking for an opportunity, any opportunity. I'd like to see him in KC, where there is opportunity, kind of filling the role that they had McKinnon in for the playoff run last season. But really anywhere, I think he might be the biggest name with the most recent success and still just 26 years old that's out there on the market.
Yeah, I think for him, it's not going to be about trying to get a ring. It's going to be about that 1 year deal where he has a role. He knows what his role is going to be, but he wants to find a place that's going to be able to, to bring that out for him. Rams kind of come to mind with them needing more of that shiftier style back that could be a third down specialist. I know that role is for Henderson, but I think Cohen in this type of offense, if things don't go well for guys like Keyshawn Vaughn and Rashad White in Tampa Bay, I think he could fit in nicely in that Gio Bernard role out there. But I think you're right. It's going to be a team who wants to give him the type of opportunity that he's looking for, so he can try to prolong his career a bit longer. It's not about chasing rings; it's about chasing the next paycheck.
Right, and proving that he's back and can command that.
Yeah. Yep.
David Johnson, I'm pretty sure he's done. Jalen Richard, Phillip Lindsay, Devontae Booker, Carlos Hyde, Malcolm Brown, Darrell Williams, Latavius Murray, Devonta Freeman, who actually looked good in pinch hit duty. He is another guy that I don't expect to sign until injuries happen. But he was solid in pinch hit duty. Peyton Barber, Jerick McKinnon, so the older version of Tariq Cohen, looked very good in his playoff run with Kansas City last year. Another guy that last year got an opportunity after a couple of injury-riddled seasons that proved he still has a bit left in the tank. Alex Collins, Corey Clement, Wayne Gallman, another guy. No. He's 2 years removed from doing anything. Kalen Balaj, Buddy Howell, Austin Walker, Siwo Olanula. Sorry, don't mean to be disrespectful. I can't pronounce it. Christian Wade, Tyson Williams. We talked about him. Justin Jackson's out there. He's 20. He's also just 26. Another guy that proved when he was given opportunities that he can very much be productive. I could see Jackson going somewhere like a Seattle if Chris Carson isn't healthy. I can see Jackson
going back to the Chargers if they, if injuries are a problem. These guys are the guys that will sign mid-season when the teams that they were previously on or schemes that they previously know
Right.
loses their starters. That's pretty much their value right now.
Yeah, or they need some form of depth. They'll show up for training camp, basically. Try to win spots. Master Teague, Le'Veon Bell. Bell's probably done. Marcellus Sutton. So I think your biggest names out there for running backs are going to be Justin Jackson and Tariq Cohen are probably the two that have in my opinion, the most value just because of recent production and they've shown it. And they're the right side of 30. But Jerick McKinnon, like I said, proved that he can be productive, and there's some other guys that were forced into duty because of injury. But I think Cohen and Jackson are the two that are most likely to sign and stick at just 26 years old apiece. And, Cohen, especially with recent productivity.
Yeah, Devonta Freeman's another guy, just what he was able to curve out in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Again, guys that they're not going to be guys that we expect to be even stick through training camp, but these are the running backs that'll be probably picked up mid-season when the starter goes down. Peterson got the same treatment with the Titans after Derrick Henry got hurt.
Yep.
Like, these guys are going to be picked up. Peyton Barber, we may joke about them, but they've had storied careers, long careers as these backups. These guys that just show up and give you just enough. And that's what we're probably going to get from a lot of these guys.
Absolutely. All right, tight ends, real quick. Jimmy Graham's probably done. Rob Gronkowski, everybody's waiting to see, I think. He's either Tampa Bay or he's done. Ebron, Rudolph, Jarwin, Jared Cook. I mean, not really a lot of names out there that you're interested in from a tight end perspective.
If they get picked up, they're going to be vet leadership, backups, blocking tight ends.
Yeah.
Like, I agree with you. Gronk's the one that we're waiting to see what he does with Tampa Bay. He's not going anywhere else. If he's not playing with his boy Brady, he's not playing. So, and there's nobody on this list. There can't be. Jimmy Graham's too fucking old. Rudolph is washed at this point. But Jarwin, he's got the right age, and he's had some moments of blocking tight end.
He is.
Yeah. But otherwise, it's all the same. Tyler Kroft's the same way. Jared Cook's too old.
Yep. There are some defensive pieces out there just to hit some highlights. James Bradbury, Landon Collins, two guys to watch.
James Bradbury.
Yep.
I'm pumped to see where he goes.
I am too. You got him and Landon Collins both out there. Collins has been a very good box safety for a while. Joe Hayden's a free agent, 33 years old, but still a piece that could help out a contending team. Jason Pierre-Paul, Akeem Hicks, same thing. They're both the wrong side of 30 but could absolutely help out a contending team. Kyle Fuller, Eddie Goldman, bunch of former Bears here from when their defenses were shut down a couple of years back. Down to Towers, probably done.
Probably.
Jadeveon Clowney's a free agent again.
He'll sign somewhere. He's like Odell and Julio and them. He's just waiting for right team, right offer. He probably still expects he deserves more, but he's someone that's he'll be a starter. He'll be a rotational guy on someone's team by week 1.
I agree completely. See, KJ Wright could end up on a contender someplace, although he's said sign with Jacksonville or he's done. There's some depth pieces still out there, some names. But from, wide receiver position, I think that there's really 3 guys there that you're going to want to watch closely that could land with some value, and that's going to be Julio Jones, Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham. I think that's where the most clout is that's left over, and then some depth running backs.
Yeah, those receivers are going to maybe blow up a couple of your favorite rookie sleepers or, a couple of your favorite sleepers, but it's not going to do too much, I don't think, at this point.
No, I'm not. All right, and that's all I've got. We'll be back sometime next week for something.
Some point.
How's that for
I
a
got
teaser?
something in mind.
Okay. We'll be back next week with whatever Dan has in mind on someday. Probably Tuesday or Thursday. We'll talk.
We're keeping it ambiguous.
You'll keep it ambiguous. Exactly. All right.